What's up guys, welcome back once again to the reviews. Today I've got a brand new product, so I'm really excited to show you this. This is another case from Be Quiet. It's their brand new series called the Shadow Base. This is the Shadow Base 800. I'm lucky enough for them to send this through to me, so thank you Be Quiet once again for supporting me. They've been absolutely brilliant. Sent me many products to review, and this is one of the brand new, like I say, brand new case that they've sent over. So I'm really fortunate to be able to take a look at this before anyone, well, a lot of other people, to be honest with you. So this, when as you're watching this video, this will be on launch day, which is the 6th of September. So you'll be seeing this literally the day it comes out, which is obviously the NDA for this. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to talk about the different variations that are available for this. We're going to talk about the build that I put into it. I'll show you some B-roll so you can see what it's look like when it's building. Obviously it's already built in, and there's no point in showing you the build sort of time lapse. I don't see the point of showing you that. You may have seen it on my other videos before. It's the same build that I use for pretty much everything because it's the only test system I have at the moment. Being obviously a small YouTuber, I don't get motherboards and graphics cards and everything sent to me all the time, so I can't use new stuff all the time. However, it's still a high spec system and still sort of something that you guys might be using still and want to change your case. So first of all, let's talk about the different variations available. There's quite a few. So there's the Shadow Base 800 standard edition, which I believe is just in black. I'll put these up on the screen for you to see. Basically the standard edition is no RGB whatsoever. It just comes with your Pure Wings 3 fans. I believe it comes with 3 or 4 of those. I'll put that up on the screen for you to see. Then you can move on to the DX version, which is the one I've got here, which has the RGB down the sides here, and that's it. And then it again comes with the Pure Wings 3 fans, 140 fans installed, and that also comes in black and white. Now the white version on the DX has this black accents to it as well, which I think looks absolutely incredible. So yeah, it looks brilliant, and obviously I've done a black and white build in this, as I don't have any white components to use, but I think it looks absolutely fantastic, and obviously you'll see it in the B-roll and when I'm taking you through the case. And then we move on to the FX version, which is obviously the most expensive version, which is kitted out with RGB. It comes with four 140mm light wings fans, so you get 3 up in the front and you get 1 in the back as well. So it's the full ARGB version is the FX. Again, comes in black and white. However, I believe the white version in that doesn't have this sort of black accent around here. But again, they will be up on the screen for you to see what you can actually get. So obviously it depends in terms of prices. I will find those out and tell you at the end of the video in terms of the prices, what they're going to be. And then you can obviously make a decision whether you want to go for a standard blacked out. If you're not an RGB fan, go for the standard one. Go for the DX, save a little bit of money on RGB fans if you want to put your own fans in it or something like that, or if you just don't want any more RGB, you're happy with just the accents at the front. And then obviously you can decide if you want to go for the FX as well. If you're a big RGB fan and want most RGB you can get in this case, then obviously that's the one for you. Now moving on to the build that I've put in this, I'll just talk through it. So the CPU we've got is the Ryzen 9 5900X with PBO enabled, basically set at auto, so obviously it will do what it wants depending on temperature. We're using a B550E Strix board from Asus. We're using 32 gigs, so 4 times 8 gigabytes of T-Force Team Group's Delta RGB, which is absolutely fantastic at 3600, so the sweet spot for AMD Ryzen. We're using an RTX 3080 Founders Edition 10 gigabyte, and the cooler we're using is the Endorphy Navis 360. Obviously, as I say, it's a 360 ARGB cooler, all-in-one cooler, but I've popped some light wings fans on that. And obviously the fans I've got, I don't have any 140s. I've basically populated it with 120s, so I've got 3 up front, 3 at the top, and 1 at the back. Like I say, this does come with 3 140mm Pure Wings 3 fans. I'm not using those, but I have put 1 in the bottom, which obviously you'll see shortly. So that's the specifications. In terms of SSDs, not that it really matters, I'm using 2 of ADATA's 1TB SX8200s, I believe they're called, which is just a Gen 3 M.2 NVMe. And the power supply, I'm using the Endorphy FM5 Supremo Gold 1000 watt, which is more than enough for this system, but will obviously give you some wiggle room if you come to upgrade it later on. So let's get into that B-roll, and then straight after the B-roll I'll take you around the case and show you basically the features of it so you can get an idea of whether this case is for you. There is a lot of features to go through, so it will take a little bit of time, but stick with me and don't go anywhere. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a like if you like it. So let's get that B-roll going, and then we'll have a talk about the case. Right, so here is the Be Quiet Shadow Base 800 DX version I've got here, but obviously it's going to look very similar to the FX version because I've populated it with light wings, although mine are 120s. So let's start at the front where we always start. Easiest place to start, tell you about the front. So as you can see, we've got argb strips down both sides, which I believe look absolutely brilliant. One thing I would have liked if they'd done sort of the same with the dark base that they do, where it runs along the bottom of the power supply shroud as well. But I understand that's a more expensive case, so you're going to get a bit more with it. So yeah, that's the front. It's all mesh, fine mesh grills on here, so it should stop dust and things like that, but that's not all that does that. Let's pop the front off and have a look. So that pops off just like that, and as you can see, the argb has gone off. That's because it uses these sort of pogo pins here, which go to this connector here, and obviously supply the argb from either the button up here or from your motherboard, which is what I'm using at the moment, is the motherboard controls. And then in the front here, obviously, as you can see, I've got 320mm fans, light wings fans at the front. This can take up to 340mm fans, so you can get up to a 420 AIO liquid coolers, not that you can get many of those, or obviously water cooling in this as well. So plenty of space for cooling in the front, but I've got basically three 120s in it. Following on from that, you've got a dust filter here, which is just literally clips into these side clips here and slots on, and has a magnet at the front here to hold it in position. That's a very fine mesh as well, so obviously you can have that on or off depending on what you like, but obviously provides a little bit more dust filtration to stop your dust getting into your system. And then other than that, there's not really much to tell you about. Like I said, 3 120s can get up to 3 140s in the front, and that's about it for the front. This bracket at the front isn't removable, which would have been nice to see to make it easier to install stuff. However, it's not that hard. The case is big for a mid-tower, and I didn't have any issues installing fans. Also, obviously, as you can tell, there's space in front of the case between that and the dust filter to get fans, so you can do that and have your radiator behind, and could even have room for push-pull configuration if you wanted to, as there's plenty of room behind, as you'll see soon. So whilst we're still at the front of the case, let's take a look at the front I/O. More than enough for most people. Would have been nice to see a couple more USBs on this, but you get a USB-C type 3.2, and then you get two USB 3 type A connections, and you get a separate mic and headphone jack, which is always nice to see. Obviously you get a power button in the middle, which is illuminated white, and then you get a light button here, so you can basically have the case control the RGB if you like, and basically link all your fans into the case and just use the button at the front. However, then if you want to control it over, you can obviously switch over to your motherboard or your preferred software for your motherboard control. You hold that down for like 5 seconds and it switches over Apologies for the noise, there's still building going off around me, so apologies for that. So that's that. Unfortunately, one thing I really don't like, this is the first thing, and it's a kind of a nitpicky, but it's personally something I like to see, is, unless I'm mistaken, there's no way to hook this up to a reset button, so you don't have a reset at all with this case, which personally I'm not a big fan of, and most of you might not be either. But obviously you've got the lighting control there. You could maybe wire your own switch in somewhere if you wanted to, if you really needed a reset button, but obviously you're going to have to be hard resetting or resetting on the motherboard itself. So this is the top. Excuse my Wi-Fi antenna at the moment. You get a full size dust filter at the top, which is obviously black and white, which looks really, really nice. Obviously you don't really need this because this is pretty much exhaust for most people. But if you are going to be putting fans as an intake, which I don't know why anyone would do, then obviously you've got dust filtration there. But obviously this does then stop dust falling in whilst your system's off, I suppose, and it's not going to restrict the airflow too much. I can still feel a lot of air coming through this, and my fans aren't running very fast at all at the moment anyway. So there's that, and like I say, that's removable, comes straight off, and it's magnetized as well, so it's got magnets all the way around the edge. So you can remove that if you like. But personally I think it sets it off with a black trim. It looks really, really nice. Coming around to the side of the case, as you can see, standard with most cases these days, well pretty much all cases these days, tempered glass panel, which removes with just 2 thumb screws, and they are captive as well, which I really like. And pull that away. It's quite thick glass as well. Try and show you that on the camera. It's quite a thick tempered glass. However, there's pretty much no tint to it whatsoever. If I just like pull it past the case, as you can see, there's hardly any tint to it whatsoever, which again, it's something I do like. It does show off your interiors as long as it's nice and tidy inside. I believe it looks absolutely awesome. But yeah, really thick glass panel, reinforced around the edge with steel as well, so it should make it harder to break. So taking a closer look inside, obviously you can see it's a very, very spacious case. There's lots and lots of room, so there's plenty of room for water cooling if you want to do custom loops and things like that. There's absolutely tons of space. As you can see, I'm using a 3080, loads more room here for a longer graphics card, obviously depending on what sort of radiator configuration you have at the front. So yeah, it's kitted out, it can fit pretty much any graphics card in here. The actual specs are up to 430mm that way, obviously pretty much unlimited, well not unlimited, but in terms of space this way there's plenty. It's going to fit pretty much any graphics card you throw at it. Even the biggest 4090 should fit in here, no problem whatsoever. Obviously you're going to eat into that, like I said before, if you're using radiators at the front, depending on what size radiator you get. I believe you probably could get a 45mm, maybe even a 60mm radiator at the front here, because there's plenty of room there. But definitely a 45mm with the fans on the front, and then maybe squeeze some fans in behind it. Also what you've got is this removable sort of tray bit here. If you want to stick, like, I don't know, water pumps or something in there, obviously then you can remove that and have more space for it there. But this has actually got like a scoop to it, so what it's supposed to do, and actually I can actually feel it coming up through there as well, is scoop the air up to your graphics card and to the rest of your components there, and direct the air up a little bit. Whether it makes a massive difference, I doubt it, but it's a nice little feature to have. Get a bit more fresh air up to your GPU, which is obviously where you're going to want it when you're gaming. Other than that, obviously, PSU shroud, full length all the way across, no really holes in it or anything other than at the back, which I'll show you in just a second. Graphics card, obviously I've told you about the length of that. The CPU cooler is up to 180mm in height out this way. Obviously your RAM and your motherboard and things like that would dictate the other dimensions. But in terms of height, 180mm, which again is a majority of air coolers out there, even some of the biggest ones will fit in here, no problem whatsoever. In terms of cable routing, you've got this obviously little cover here, which can either be removed or moved along that way to accommodate bigger motherboards, because this can fit up to an E80X board. So you can move that way if you like, or you can take it out completely if you really wanted to. But that's basically to cover some of your cables up, which I think it does a nice job. One thing I would have liked to have seen with this is if you could move it that way a bit more, because as you can see my cables here, and if you could move it that way a little bit, you'd be able to cover them up a little bit more, and I think that would look a bit nicer. And maybe have the holes for your cables a little bit further in as well, or an option for that. One thing it doesn't have is the holes don't have any cable grommets on it, but then again, because that's covered by that, it's probably not necessary, so I kind of understand why they've done that. Then I'll just take the camera off and have a look into the case a little bit more. Just want to show you down here. If you can see it, there's like a hole at the back, which obviously all your cables for your front panel and everything will come through, and your graphics card. And it literally runs the whole length all the way down there. You can see it just under there. So there's loads and loads of space to get cables out. There's no sort of restrictions, as you find with some cases. They're kind of in the wrong places, your holes are, and it makes it a little bit awkward. Just get a little shot around the back there so you can see where all the cables come through there. So that's a nice little feature. And obviously if you have a vertical graphics card like I've got, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, it covers it up completely and looks really, really nice. I'm really impressed by that. Carrying on with the theme of cable routing, and things like that, as you can see up here, if I can get a good shot, the AIO slots are stepped quite far forward. Obviously, it'd be different if you're using 140 size fan radiators and things like that, but they are stepped quite forward, and obviously you can see there's a lot of space above the motherboard to route your cables through. So there's plenty of room to get your cables through, and it's even quite easy to work on. After you've put everything in, if you need to get some more cables in, I didn't find it too challenging to get my hands up there and basically pull cables through. So that's a nice little addition, and they've kind of really thought about that in terms of getting that sort of space for you to be able to get stuff in and out and whatnot, and get your fingers in there to install things. I'll just show you that at the top as well. To remove this cover, you can see how much it's stepped over, so that's really nice as well. And let me just pop this back on the tripod. And in terms of cooler support and fan support up the top, again, it's up to 420 at the top. So 140s, 120s, sorry, or obviously radiators to match. So plenty of room up there. Talking about more fans at the back, I've got a 120 in. Again, you can get up to a 140 at the back there. So if you have lots of 140s, you can really kit this out to the maximum and fill it up with lots and lots of fans, or lots of surface area of fans in anyway. So if you're doing a water cool build, then 420 at the front, 420 at the top, 140 at the back, you could fit loads and loads of radiators in here and things like that, and you've just got so much room for cooling. It's really geared towards cooling these cases, which I really like. So that's the inside done. Let's have a move around to the back. There's a little thing I want to tell you about. Obviously, as you can see, I've got a vertical GPU in here, and I didn't have to buy any brackets for that. This case comes with the ability to do it. I have done a case like this before that has this ability. I've just stretched my cable a little bit there. I've had a case that's done this before, where basically you literally take off these screws here and you can rotate the whole PCIe brackets sort of section, and then basically you've got vertical GPU mounting as standard without installing any brackets or anything like that. You've literally got the bracket built into the case already, which again is fantastic, and I was really impressed the first time I saw a case I did that. So the fact that Be Quiet have taken that on is a massive thumbs up for me. It looks absolutely brilliant. In terms of PCIe slots, there's 7, which is again pretty much standard. PSU mounting is pretty much standard again now, really, with most cases, especially Be Quiet cases. They do this in all the ones I've seen so far, I think. Basically, removable bracket, which you attach to your PSU and then slide it in on the bracket and put it in with captive thumb screws. Again, absolutely fantastic. So coming around to the back, again, same as the front, really, as the side, sorry, obviously just not glass. We've got captive thumb screws on the back and slides back to remove the panel. I'll quickly talk about the panel. It has got sound dampening in it. Obviously, with there's holes everywhere on this case, it's not going to do a great deal, but it is going to help a little bit. I'll probably do some testing on that in terms of acoustics to see actually if it does make any difference whatsoever. I can't imagine it's going to make any difference. Well, maybe a little bit, I don't know, but not a lot. But obviously it's nice to see that there. Stops any sort of rattling noises and things like that as well, I suppose. So yeah, there's plenty there. And then let's have a look inside the back of the case. Apologies for the terrible cable management. I am using Lightwings fans, and although I love those fans for the way they look and perform, unfortunately one, the PWM fans aren't the PWM connections aren't daisy chainable, but the argb ones are. But obviously then there's always going to be a lot of cables. So in terms of storage on this case, there's quite a bit. You've got two here around the back of the motherboard on this removable sort of sled, so you can put two 2.5-inch SSDs there. If you're using those. I'm obviously not using, I'm just using M.2s in this. I do have some I might put in it eventually. And you've also got, ignore my controller, I just wanted to make life a little bit easier for myself. You've got mount there and a mount under where this controller is for your SSDs. So it says on the specs it's up to 8 and there's 4 included, so there's your 4. That's more than enough. In terms of adding more, you're gonna have to buy extra brackets from Be Quiet to add more to it if you want to put more SSDs in it. I would have thought there'll probably be like sort of down here was where you'd fit the new ones. So yeah, basically with this this bracket can actually move to down here. So to install more SSDs, you'd have to put another one of these down here, and then I'm not sure where the other one would go, to be honest with you. If you were putting more in, because it says up to 8, probably where the hard drive bit would go down the bottom. So with this as well, in terms of 3.5-inch hard drives, if you're wanting to install those, you can get up to 4 on this, which again is using this bracket here, and then you'd need another one. You've only got 2 included for that. But it also does only say you get 2 included with this, it says up to 4. However, you do get this little panel in here as well, but I assume you need to buy a hard drive cage to put this on, because you literally just got that, and obviously you don't want your hard drives dangling off that. But that can basically go down here and install here that way around, I believe, and basically then you can put hard drive cages into that and add 2 more hard drive cages in there. So I suppose technically maybe you could, it does say up to 4 maximum, but you probably could cram another 2 in. Again, most people aren't using those these days, so it's not a big deal in my eyes anyway. And this is going to be aimed at people doing sort of mid to high range builds, so they're probably not going to be using hard drives. Now in terms of power supply unit, as you can see, my power supply is down there and is absolutely dwarfed in this case. It's not a particularly big one, it's only 150mm long, I believe, but this can fit up to 250mm, which is insane really. There isn't many out there that are that big, and even the really high power ones now are getting smaller and smaller, so you would not have a problem with PSUs whatsoever, I wouldn't have thought. If you do, then I have no idea what PSU you're using, because that's going to be mental. 250mm for a PSU is massive. So you've got plenty of room in there. Obviously, when you're PSUs in, then you've got loads and loads of room, as you can see under here, for cable, sticking your cable, stuffing them in, putting controllers and stuff in there, water cooling, things like that. You could cram lots down the bottom down there. And then, as you might be able to see just down here, you've also got another space for another fan, either 120 or 140mm. I've repurposed one of the ones that comes with it, the Pure Wings 3, and put this in the bottom for a little bit of extra intake for my graphics card. I was originally going to put a Light Wings down here, however I didn't see the point because you can't see it. So I basically stuck one of the 140s down here to get more airflow down the bottom there. Now in terms of cable management in this system, as you can probably see if I move the camera around a little bit, there's lots and lots of room. It's quite a chunky gap here. There's probably about 1.5 inches of gap there, so plenty of room for fitting all your cables in. And yeah, so you shouldn't have any problem with cable management. Obviously my cable management is absolutely terrible, mainly because it's a build obviously that is going to get taken apart at some point. It's built for this review, so I didn't want to obviously spend too much time cable management. I've packed these together as much as I can, just for quickness and easiness of doing that. But yeah, plenty of room for cable management, and even with this mess in it, I was able to get the side panel on absolutely no problems whatsoever. So that's the overview of the case done, really. Last thing I forgot to mention is down here, if I just show you again, sorry about the mess around. If you pull out from under here, there's a full length dust cover underneath to stop all the dust coming in from underneath. So there's that there as well. So everything's been thought about really on this case, I believe, for a sort of it's kind of a mid to high range case, I'd say. It's not the cheapest. I will talk about the price in the end of the video. So basically, let's get back up top and we'll talk about the thermal testing that I'll do on it, and then obviously we'll wrap it up. Right, so thanks for sticking with me and getting to this point of the video. If you have, let's talk about thermal performance, and then obviously we'll wrap it up at the end and give you my thoughts on the case, what I like and what I don't like. So the way I've done my testing for thermal performance of cases is always the same. Basically do it tested with it all closed up and then tested with it all open, so panels removed. So that gives you a sort of good idea of how good the airflow is in the case. So yeah, we'll talk about that. For the CPU, I do worst case scenario. I run it at max tilt on the fans because obviously it doesn't really matter what you run the fans at as long as you keep the constants the same throughout the testing, and you'll get a sort of result as to how well it performs. So CPU is Cinebench 5-minute run multi-core to absolutely cane the CPU and heat it up as best as possible, to give you sort of worst case scenario, and then GPU hit it with Unigine superposition on 1080p extreme. Is only 1080p, but it hits the GPU hard because it's extreme. It's a really hard test to run. So first of all, let's talk about the CPU. So at the time of doing the readings, obviously temperature in this room changed a little bit. It's really warm in here now. It's really warm here at the moment in the UK, so obviously temperatures are going to be affected, but I'll give you sort of the ambient temperature, and I'll put up on the screen the over ambient temperatures as well for you to see sort of real world how it performs. So in terms of the idle temperatures of the CPU, obviously it all depends on your cooler as well and your fans and stuff like that, but it gives you an idea of how the case performs. So the CPU at idle was at 36 degrees on the package, and that was at 25 degrees ambient. And then with the case open was at 36 degrees, but that was the ambient was around 26 in here at the time. So probably a degree better with the case open, so not bad at all by any stretch of the imagination. And then we go on to the max readings, and maximum was 74 degrees on both open and closed. However, the ambient had risen to about 26.5 in here. And it was about 26, so it's within margin of error, to be honest with you, half a degree. It's hard to say really because obviously temperatures heat up inside the case, things like that. If I'm running the test straight away, ideally I'd run it the day after or something like that, just to make sure the temperature from the previous test hasn't infected it at all, but I don't honestly have the time to do things like that, unfortunately, but it still gives you an idea. The airflow is obviously decent in here, and then we went on to the GPU test. Like I say, I used superposition 1080p extreme to hit the GPU hard. I have got it in the vertical position here, so it is compromised as it is, because you are better if you watch Hardware Canucks video. They actually tested all the different orientations, and standard GPU setup is the best way to go. But I want it vertical in this because I think it looks absolutely brilliant. So I've obviously got one of the worst ways to do it. So obviously that's compromised, but again, it's comparable because I'm using the same test system for both tests. So with the system closed was at 31 degrees at an ambient of 25 on the idle, sorry, and then with open was at 30.8 with an ambient of 26, so just over a degree cooler. Again, could be within margin of error, very little in it at all, but at worst case scenario, you between 1 and 2 degrees difference, which isn't massive at all really. Again, showing the airflow is decent in this case. Obviously I've got that fan at the bottom pushing air up as well, which is obviously, well, I assume is helping. Then we went on to obviously stress test it, and the maximum on the GPU when the case was closed was 63, and the maximum when it was open was 63 as well. Again, the temperature had risen a little bit in this room by the time I did that, by about half a degree. So again, there's anywhere from around a half to a full degree in it. Not a lot at all, again, within margin of error probably as well. So airflow wise, fantastic. As you can see, it's perforated everywhere. It's got these bits down the side, it's got the bit at the front. There's plenty of airflow. There's airflow from underneath if you stick a fan down there, which I'd say you might as well. If you've got one lying around, you might as well chuck it down there, even if it's a cheap one, whatever. You can't see it down there, so if you've got a spare fan, throw it at the bottom and get a little bit of extra cooling, why not? Now, in terms of obviously I mentioned the sound dampening panel that's in it before. In terms of that, doesn't do a lot at all, which I didn't think it would, because obviously the rest of the case is sort of open with the mesh and everything, so the back panel being sound dampened doesn't do a lot, but in my testing it was about 52 decibels of everything running max, with the panels all closed up, and with that panel popped open it was between 52.5 and 53, so half to 1 decibel in it. Not a big deal. It is doing something, but it's not a massive deal at all. So there you go. So let's wrap it up. In terms of performance, absolutely fantastic. In terms of looks, absolutely fantastic. Obviously, this is my opinion in terms of the aesthetics of it, but I really, really like this one. I think it looks absolutely brilliant. It's a fantastic case in terms of the space you've got to work in. I might actually do a water-cooled loop in this at some point because I think it looks absolutely brilliant, and I'd like to basically probably use this quite a lot, to be honest with you, in terms of until I get another case review, it's probably going to stay in there and I'm not going to mess around with it too much. But yeah, absolutely fantastic case. I'm really, really impressed with it. I am a bit of a Be Quiet fan, and it's not just because they've supported me. Every product I've had from them, to be honest with you, so far, it's not let me down at all. I've had from the lower end of their stuff to the sort of higher end stuff in terms of coolers and things like that, and they've all been absolutely brilliant, to be honest with you. All been absolutely amazing. So most of you watching this video probably already know that Be Quiet make good stuff, and as you can see, they've done it again. They made a brilliant one, and yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic case. So let's talk about the price of it. Like I have mentioned a few times in this video, it is sort of mid to high range, the FX being more on the high end sort of price, and the base model being more towards a sort of mid sort of tier in terms of cases and their price. But in terms of, personally, I think the price is around about right, to be honest with you. The prices at the moment, I've got them up on the screen here, so I'll just talk through them. This is at overclockers.co.uk. Obviously, prices will vary on region and shops you use and things like that. So the basically base model, which is only in black, no argb, just your Pure Wings 3 fans, is 144.98. Go up to the DX in black is 159.98. The DX in white, so this one I've got here, is 164.99. And then if you go up to the FX, it's 194.99 for the black and 204.98 for the white. So you obviously do pay a premium on the white. Personally, I wish they'd done the FX one with these black bits down the side, because I think they really set it off. But obviously, if you want a full complete white build, then obviously the FX white is for you. So in terms of price, they aren't cheap. They aren't particularly cheap at all. The base model is obviously quite a bit more affordable. Personally, depending on obviously what you've got, I've obviously got loads of different fans and stuff, so for me it's an easier decision to make. I'd go for the DX and then kit it out on my own fans. But if you haven't got the argb fans already and you want full argb mode, then the FX is, what is it, £40 more around there. But you're getting 4 Lightwings 140 fans, which are over £20 each, I believe, on their own. So a full pack's probably about £70. So you are saving a little bit of money if you want those fans in it as well. So in terms of price, not the cheapest, definitely not the most expensive, but it has got a lot of features. It is really easy to build in. There's lots of features, like I say, built in. There's lots of space in there. So it is, in terms of price, between mid and high end, but in terms of features, I'd say it's definitely there for a high-end build. If you're doing a really high-end build, then this case will accommodate it and make it look fantastic. Things I don't like about it, not a lot really, to be honest with you. The cable management bit on the side that I showed you inside, it'd be nice if you could move it the other way a little bit as well. It'd be nice if there's RGB on the PSU shroud, but again, that's going to add more cost. It'd be nice if you could get 4 120 fans in it, in the front and the top, so you could do like a 480. But again, that's obviously a whole new case. That makes it probably more towards a full tower, well, pretty much a full tower case. So in keeping in the mid sort of tower, that's sort of about all you can do. Other than that, no, not really. There's not really much I can complain about. Rubber grommets would have been nice on the hole, basically the hole at the bottom, I would have thought, and maybe a blanking plate for that big gaping hole where your radiator goes at the front, just to blank it off if you're not using radiators, because you've obviously got that scoop as well, so even if you blank that off, you'll still be getting airflow up from there as well. Just little tiny things, nothing major whatsoever to talk about in terms of things I don't like about it. So yeah, all in all, absolutely really impressed with this case. So if you're looking sort of doing a high-endish build, whatever, you're happy to spend nearly £200 or over £200 for the FX version, and you want, like, obviously argb and everything like that, then definitely consider this case. Definitely give it a thumbs up, and I recommend in terms of the quality of the build and the features. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it's been a long one, but there's a lot to cover on this, and I want to do it justice, as it is just release case, and I want to make sure I covered everything I could on this case and give it the attention it deserves. So thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, I hope you like this. If you did, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a dislike. Please leave me any comments in the comment section below. If you have any questions, anything I've missed, or anything you wasn't sure of that I've spoke about, then I'll clear that up for you in a comment if you want to. And obviously, if you haven't already subscribed, then please don't forget to subscribe. It helps me do these videos, helps me keep going, and get more products to show you guys. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.